Hello, geekologists, and Happy New Year! This is Systematic Geekology, and we have a very special episode for you today. We are here with a friend of mine who was actually one of the first comic book creators I ever interviewed back when I was in college. But Robert Venditti, you may know him from his work a lot at DC, Superman 78, Green Lantern, Hawkman, and then one of my favorites, Exo Manowar. He also has a new book out through Bad Idea called Ordained, which we'll talk about today. But Rob, really great to have you today. This will be a lot of fun.
No, thanks for y'all having me on. I appreciate it. I remember that first interview going pretty well, so you were pretty good at it right out of the gate.
Oh, I appreciate it. No, funny story about that though. I remember because I think it was I was writing for the NC Comic Con site just on the side, and I sent you. This was when I was terribly inept with technology, and I sent you the Skype link. That's how I was back in the Skype days. But I sent you that, and I had trouble getting it loaded on my iPad. And I was like, crap, he's gonna I guess I think you got on first, and you were like, oh, hello, and I was trying to get on. So the interview itself went well, but that was my inept technology in those
Well, I
days.
don't even
But
remember that part. So yeah.
So that was in the before times, before everybody got used to Zoom and
yes,
streaming, and
yes.
here we
Yeah,
are on
yeah, yeah,
YouTube and doing that.
yeah.
Yeah, I love
Now
that.
I do it in my sleep because I work remotely, and yeah, but yes, and we've done panels at Comic Con, so it's been a lot of fun. So Rob, thanks for joining us. I'm Kevin Schaefer here with my good friend geekologist Will Rose. Will, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year! Yeah, we're recording this live on the 12th day of Christmas. So the gift that we are giving to the world is a conversation with Rob Venditti. I'm pretty excited. I'm a huge comic book nerd. I have my weekly pool. I'm excited about his new book Ordained, since I'm an ordained Lutheran minister. I love John Wick, and I loved Wake Up Dead Man, which there's a blend there. And if you want to keep going with those kinds of genres, Ordained is for you. I love the first issue, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, if you're
It is
starting out
actually
with
very
me to
well.
begin your 2026, there's nowhere to go but up from here, guys.
There
So
you go. All right. Yeah.
Oh no, no, but Rob, we are glad to have you today, and yeah, and so before we get started, if for viewers out there, if you want to support the show, just click the link in the description. You can find out more about us, find ways to support, rate, review, subscribe, all of that good stuff. But we want to get straight to it today. So Will, I'll hand it over to you first to get started.
Yeah. Usually we start what are we geeking out on, but we'll do that at the end of this. Right now I'm geeking
sure,
out
yeah.
on Rob being with us, and I love asking, since I'm a big comic book fan, I love asking how the sausage is made, what's the process, what their background, origin story, that kind of stuff. So what was your kind of your work is so prolific in comics. How did you get your start in comics? What's your origin story? Where did it all begin for you, Rob?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up reading comic books at all. I started reading them in like my mid to late 20s. Um, I always wanted to be a writer, but comic books weren't something that were ever on my radar. And then
Yeah.
when I started writing them, I was doing fiction. I was in grad school for creative writing. I was writing short stories and things like that. And when I read them, I decided I wanted to try to write them, but I had no idea how to go about doing this. This is, 2000. So
Mhm.
it wasn't the way it is now with, books and websites and all kinds of things you can go to, and Patreon where you can learn about being a writer or whatever. Like none of that stuff really existed too much. So I started out by volunteering to work in the warehouse for a small press publisher named Top Shelf Productions. They've since gone on to become an imprint of IDW, but they're publishers of blankets, Swallow Me Whole, the very famous March book series by
Yeah.
John Lewis.
Hmm.
They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. Like a lot of really good stuff. So I started out working there in their warehouse as their inventory person. Uh, Moved up, through things, doing editorial, doing sales. I was the first employee ever hired by the company, so kind of wore a lot of different hats. And while I was there, I wrote the script for my first comic book, which is called The Surrogates. And I gave that to Chris, who was the editor at Top Shelf. And it was sort of a sci-fi cyberpunk story, which was outside of what Top Shelf did, which was primarily, kind of heartfelt autobio comics, things like that. And I was like, look, if you don't think this is for you, that's great. But if you think it's good enough, maybe you could introduce me to Vertigo or Dark Horse or something like that. But Chris really liked it. They'd always wanted to do something that was a little bit more, genre. And so they asked if I wanted to publish it there, and I was very excited to do so because I had a great relationship with them, and I knew that it would be a really rare opportunity for my first book, especially to see it from the creator side and from the business side. Go through the whole ordering, and it's in the catalog, and all the way down to packing up books, my own book, and sending it to a retailer for them to sell. And so they published it, and that was how I got my start. That was my first book. So
Nice.
And Rob, on that note too, so the Surrogates is like, hey, it's a really good book, but it was actually also adapted into a big Hollywood movie. And so, what was the feeling of that like for? Because not only is it rare for a first book to actually go through a publisher. A lot of creators these days, they might self-publish something small, but you actually got a publisher, and then beyond that, it got a big screen adaptation. So, what was that feeling like?
yeah, I mean, it was definitely wild. Like I didn't think any of that would happen. My hope when I wrote Surrogates was that somebody would publish it. I felt certain nobody would ever read it, but at least I'd have a printed copy that I could give to editors and use as a resume piece. This is the kind of stories I do. This is how I develop character. This is how I develop plot, and use that to get additional work. So I wasn't thinking this is going to be a movie, or I wasn't writing comics to make movies. I still don't. Any of those kinds of things. And in fact, the book was timed to come out around Comic-Con the year that it did. I think this was 2005 when the first issue came out. And I was out there in my capacity as being an employee for Top Shelf, setting up the booth, moving around pallets full of books and setting up the tables and putting all these stacks out of everybody's books. And this year, I'd done this for years, but this year mine happened to be one of the books. And so I'm doing that all day Wednesday. I run home, back to the hotel to clean up, to come back in time for preview night, which I think starts at like 6. And I get back and the door's open and people are immediately walking up to the table that were producers asking me who controlled the film rights to Surrogates because they were interested in optioning it. And I had just been unloading the boxes like 5 minutes earlier. So it was definitely a surreal experience.
What year was that? Do you remember? When was
that? Was 2005. Yeah, it was
2005.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm freezing up on my end. I don't know if you're seeing that on your end. The camera's freezing up as far as where I see it, but I'm going to roll with it until you guys tell me it's a problem.
You're fine on my side. I don't know about you, Kevin.
No, it's still coming in. You're good.
Okay, so that was 2005, and it went through a whole bunch of stuff, and it didn't actually end up getting optioned until 2006, but the movie was out in 2009. And so that obviously was a very fortunate thing to have happen because, again, thinking it Surrogates as a resume piece for me, it was something that, whether you liked the movie or not, my name had gotten out there and the book had gotten out there. And when it came time years later when Valiant was looking for writers to relaunch the Valiant universe, the editor-in-chief over there, Warren Simons, he had read Surrogates when it had come out, and he remembered it, and he reached out to me and asked me to pitch for books. And I pitched for XO and got XO, and then that led to, Eternal Warrior, and that led to Green Lantern, and, on from there. So in the end, I feel like Surrogates did accomplish that thing I was hoping that it would do, which is be that resume piece to get me more work. It just did it in a way that I totally didn't expect.
That's a good story. So since then, in terms of like pop culture or things that you geeked out on as a kid that led you to want to do creative writing or movies, TVs, and then eventually get to comics, was there something that you geeked out on or that you loved as a kid that led you to that moment to say like, this is what I want to do for a living, is be a creator, to create stories?
Yeah, there were definitely things I geeked out on. I wanted to write stories ever since I can remember, like first grade, So I can't say what it was other than I liked reading and I was somehow drawn to it, Also, my grandfather, my mother's father, who I was really close with, was just an excellent verbal storyteller, He would tell stories about his experiences in World War II or growing up in the Depression or any of those kinds of things. And I was always just fascinated he was like listening to an old radio program. You know, he was just really good at telling stories. So I don't know if it came from there. Uh, I just, like I say, I always wanted to do it. Things I did geek out about, though. Oh man, and one of these hurts to this day is a bunch of stuff. Superman 2, I remember seeing Superman 2 in theater. You know, so the Christopher Reeve Superman things were huge for me. Superman, even though I never read comics, was always like one of my very favorite fictional characters, which is weird that I wouldn't read comics, but I guess I thought of him more as a movie person, you know, than a comic person. In high school, I read a lot of Stephen King. Was a big fan of Stephen King, which is crazy because I can't tolerate horror at all now. My good friend Brock McKinney, who you all know, a big horror guy, and he'll ask me if I've seen a movie, and I'm always like, no, dude, I haven't seen that movie. I've seen like maybe 3 horror movies in my life. You know, this drives him crazy to no end. I saw Alien 3, then Alien 4, then Alien 2, and then Aliens, because I had always heard that the original Alien was scary and I shouldn't see it. So I saw that one last. So when I saw Alien 3, I thought it was a perfectly fine movie. I'd never seen any other Alien movies before in my life. I'm like, this is great. They're in a prison. They're running around. This thing's trying to kill them. It wasn't until years later that I watched the other ones and I realized what Alien 3 was to the franchise.
So you did like the reverse order. You did reverse order.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's good.
But thing I really geeked out about, I would say the biggest middle school, high school was Thundercats and Silverhawks. And I'm not a big licensed property. Like I don't really want to write Star Wars comics or Star Trek or whatever. But I always said the one thing I would love to do if it ever happened would be Thundercats or Silverhawks. And then of course Dynamite is doing it, and they went and got other writers, whatnot. So I missed my chance. But that was always the thing that I really wanted to do. Yeah.
Well, you did Hawkman, so you kind of got like, you know, you got some kind of Hawk version. A little bit.
Yeah.
Fun.
Hey, Rob, speaking of horror, I have to say, as a side note here, I'm sitting here with 2 of the stars of the horror movie Repchild, because if I don't know, Will has a cameo at the very beginning of the movie, Rob has a cameo at the very end. So,
that's right.
Speaking of Brock McKinney, you put your staple on the horror.
I think they just photoshopped me in there. Yeah.
That's funny. I didn't know we were in the same movie, Rob. That's kind of fun.
Yes,
yeah. My wife and I are in the opening scene in the bar scene when the first Scream Queen comes in, and our direction was, you're having drinks, she's being obnoxious, give her the stink eye, and I'm like, oh, we can do that. And so Brockton lingered on us for like an extra second. So I was very happy that I'll start my IMDb.
I'm surprised we didn't bump into each other at craft services or something. You know?
That's right. Fun.
I love it. And Rob, going back, so I know this story about how influential Superman 2 was for you, but going back to that, like, can you talk about how that movie specifically then, came full circle years later with Superman 78?
Yeah, so it's sort of the big joke about me. I went on to work at Valiant, and then I did a lot of stuff for DC for years. Green Lantern, Flash, Justice League, Hawkman, a bunch of stuff. But the thing that was always kind of the joke about me was whenever somebody would ask me to pitch for a character, I knew nothing about that character. So like when they asked me to pitch on Green Lantern, I was like, I guess he's green and there's a lantern, but I'm not sure what the lantern does. I knew like the visual of Green Lantern from Super Friends or something, but I didn't know, having never read comics. But the one thing, and that ended up being, I think, an asset to me, because for better or for worse, the way I always say is you can't fake stupid. Like if I had always read Green Lantern, when they asked me to pitch for Green Lantern, I wouldn't be able to give it maybe a fresh take, because I couldn't pretend I hadn't read all that stuff and already knew it. So all these things I pitch for from when they asked me to pitch it for Valiant, I was like, man, not only have I never heard of those characters, I've never heard of Valiant. I don't even know what that is, because Valiant had come and gone before I started reading comics. But the one thing that everybody knew that I loved was Christopher Reeve Superman. And so Andrew Marino, who had been my editor on Green Lantern, Hawkman, Freedom Fighters, a lot of different things. He had the idea to do a Batman 89 and a Superman 78 miniseries. And he reached out to me to pitch it because he knew this was the one thing that I liked. and the continuity that I was familiar with. And so I ended up getting to write two Superman 78 miniseries, each one 6 issues. And that was great fun. That was not even really a dream project because it wasn't something I ever thought would exist, because if there were going to be comics for Superman 78, it would have happened already, right? And so
Right.
I never sat back like I did with Thundercats and Silverhawks and say, maybe someday, like clearly Superman 78, if there were going to be comics, it would have already happened, but they hadn't. So really was a dream project. Would love to do more of it someday if we get the chance.
Well, I like that, we all, when it comes to Superman and the movies, the one villain or the character that hasn't shown up yet, there's like the big bad that we all want to see is Brainiac. And it looks like that's going to happen with James Gunn's universe. But you got to do that. You got to do that in the like, oh, what a Superman 3 would have been great with Brainiac. And then you get did you know anything about Brainiac or have to do any research, or they give you like
at that point because I'd been operating in the DC universe for a really long time, and so I would read. They send you every issue that they publish every month, and so I would read them. So I'm up on what's happening in other books and elsewhere in the universe and things. So by that point, I had read some Brainiac stories. Late New 52 forward was basically my DC knowledge. So I understood the basic mechanics of Brainiac, but the nice thing about the Superman 78 continuity is you can kind of take those basic things and then do with them what you want a little bit, in the same way they did with Lex Luthor and all those things. I wasn't writing the DC Universe version of Brainiac. I was writing what the version of Brainiac might have been had Donner and Puzo, done Brainiac. And so it was filtering it through that lens, that version of Lois Lane, that version of Lex Luthor, that version of Superman, that version of Jimmy Olsen, those kinds of things. And it was great fun to do. And, that book we worked, the artist on that book was Wilfredo Torres, who's an amazing talent. It was his genius to sort of cast Brainiac as David Bowie, which is amazing. I'm a huge David Bowie fan. It never occurred to me until he did it. And I was just like, oh man, what a great choice. You could totally see that. And so, yeah, one of the books I'm definitely proudest of in my career. I feel like I could hand it to anybody. And it's got a lot of heart. Thematically, it's about a lot of the things that I like to have in my stories, and so really, really happy.
Yeah, you should be. It's a great book, and love getting it and reading it. And it's I think one of the first movies I saw with my family in the theater was Star Wars, but also Superman. That first one, and then we couldn't wait for that sequel. And then we see them kind of like. We have Zod and the whole family like powered up and seeing Superman at his best, not holding back with the superpowers, was really a lot of fun. Then to see that continued in your book as an older comic book reader just took me right back to that movie, but also captured, I think, who Superman is and how Christopher Reeves portrayed Superman to be in your comic. So yeah, you should
I remember seeing Superman. I don't remember seeing the first Superman movie. I was too young. I'm sure I did. I remember seeing American Graffiti for some reason, and I think that's older than Superman 78.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But I remember falling asleep during American Graffiti. But I do remember seeing Superman 2, and it was a very formative moment in my life in terms of story. And I was just at the right age when I watched it that I thought Superman was real, and he came out of the particle chamber and he had lost his powers. I didn't know what the world was going to do anymore. And then he crushes Zod's hand, and the score takes off, and Superman had this. People always say Superman's a Boy Scout, and it's not realistic that somebody would do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And I find that to be such a cynical view of the world. Like, I don't see the world that way. I think we're all inherently good people. Not every single human being, but I think we're inherently good, not inherently bad. And I think the most of us try to do the right thing, and we don't always succeed. But when we don't, we hopefully use that experience to learn to be better. And so in Superman, I always saw a character who could do anything he wanted, and he chooses to do the right thing. And I always found that to be very inspiring and a great way to look at the world. And not really so much that I modeled myself after that, as I saw in that a way that I wanted the world to be, like something that I was already feeling inside, but you don't really see so much in our entertainment, but it existed there,
Yeah.
And I think if you go and you read my stories, whatever those stories are, they always kind of have that theme, this idea that people are inherently good. We never run out of second chances. We can always be better up until the time we die. And no matter who we are, there's always a chance for us, And whether it's Green Lantern or Flash or Superman or Hawkman or um, even something that seems more gritty and crime like Ordained or something like that, those themes run throughout, I would say, pretty much everything that I've ever done, so.
And that's why I really like this newest Superman movie that Gunn did. I don't know what are your creating Superman, writing Superman, and then going to see that movie, or I'm assuming you've seen it. Like, what are your thoughts of the newest? You haven't seen it. You haven't seen it.
No, I
Oh,
haven't seen it yet.
are you doing that because
I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous to go see it.
Okay, I hear you.
I will.
hear you.
I'll watch it eventually, but it's one of those things where, like, I have to be in the right mindset to watch it, because I want to do it service, like, what's another example? Like, if I was going to watch Saving Private Ryan, I need to be in the right mindset to watch Saving Private Ryan. I'm not just going to walk in and out of the room and watch Saving Private Ryan, right? I want to give it the attention it deserves. And Superman being such a personal character to me, I could watch a Justice League movie or a Flash movie or a Batman movie or whatever, and I could walk in and out of the room and I don't care. But if it's Superman, like, I want to make sure that I'm really there and I'm present for it. And I just haven't carved out the time, I feel like, to be able to do that, But I've heard good things about it, And also that's the whole thing of, like, what you grew up with. Like, I can't imagine whatever anybody does is going to be the same as Christopher Reeve Superman to me because of all the reasons I just said. The age when I saw it, how formative it was for me. Like, just nothing's going to supplant that, right? And so I just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I will.
Super fair. The trailer I loved, and I like James Gunn's work, so I was there all in and loved it. But someone not that long ago, and I've shared this before, someone said, "What's the last movie you cried at?" And I was like, "Oh, that Superdog movie." They were like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, the movie about crypto." Oh, and Superman happened to be there, but crypto. So I'm a huge dog lover, and I loved how crypto was, and I love that movie. So I know Kevin and I both recommend it, and I'm looking forward to Supergirl coming up and what they'll do next in the DC universe with James Gunn. But yeah, that's fair. I can imagine writing and creating Superman, and then turn around and be like, I got my stories, I got my love. I'll hold off and wait until the right moment. That's fair.
Yeah, and sometimes too, it feels a little bit like work. Like, I haven't seen a Marvel movie or TV show since Endgame. I guess the last DC thing I saw was probably Justice League, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the TV shows or anything like that because it's like, it's hard.
Yeah.
First of all, when you're a writer, it's hard to watch anything. Like, I can watch documentaries all day long. I can watch sports all day long because I'm not sort of reflexively guessing what the plot turns are going to be. And here's second act.
Yeah.
There's the big reveal and whatever. You see a lot of things coming down the track in the way that I'm sure a cop, when they watch a cop TV show, it's like, they can't just separate themselves and be entertained by it. They just default into the setting, And so,
like doctors watching a medical show. I'm a pastor, so I stay away from all religious shows and movies. My daughter was like, "Dad, you have to watch The Good Place." I was like, "No, I'm staying away from that. I'm probably gonna be really judgy. I don't want to do it." But she's like, "No, you're gonna love it." And as I watched the first episode, yep, it's one of the best things I've ever seen, and I'll follow all the way through. It was my favorite. So I eventually was like, whenever, but I can understand, like, when you're too close to something, you're like, or you feel like it's going to mess in your headspace of your creative process. Super fair.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, because sure, I was going to say, I'm really curious to see when we get to the end, what your geeking out will be, because we've talked about that before, how, like, a lot of comic creators, like, don't really watch, I mean, some do, but not all watch, like, the superhero movies and stuff like that for entertainment, because you're living in this world 9 to 5 every day. But Rob, Will, I'm glad you brought up Ordained because I do. We want to talk about this book, and
Yes, we do.
And Rob, I'm glad you said too that despite the different genres you work in and different types of characters, a lot of the themes in your stories are kind of across the border. So yeah, Will, I know you got to read this one first, and I read it last night and really enjoyed it. Yeah, so let's get into this conversation.
Yeah, Rob, was it your pitch? Was someone pitching to you? Where did this come from? Was this something you had in your mind you wanted to put out, or where did the origin story for this particular story or comic come from?
Yeah, it was my idea. It's hard to say where ideas come from, like I don't know, like all of a sudden there'll be an idea and there wasn't a second ago. But I had this idea I'm Catholic, so I'm familiar with the process of going to confession and all those kinds of things. And I had an experience with my grandfather that I was talking about earlier when he passed away. Um, he was actually in the hospital. He was very, very sick. And he was in Florida and I was in Atlanta. And my mom calls me and is like, you need to come down and say goodbye. So my wife drives me pretty much overnight to get down there and get to the hospital and to see him. And by the time I get there, he's like perfectly healthy. And the doctor is like, we don't know what happened. Like we didn't think he was going to survive the night. And now we're going to send him home on like Thursday. And I'm talking to my grandfather and he's laughing and whatever. And, I talked to him and I got in the car and I went back home, And so,
Yeah.
I guess those kinds of things just kind of crashed together in my head in some way. And I had the idea for this story of, what if there's a priest who goes to a hospital to deliver last rites to a patient at a patient's request? He goes in, ends up finding out through the confession that the patient is an Irish mobster and confesses all of the stuff he's done up to and including murder because he's on his deathbed and he's completely repentant. He's crying and he's scared because he's dying. And the priest goes through his confession, absolves him of his sins. And then overnight, gangster makes a miraculous recovery. He's no longer going to die, but now he has to kill the priest that he confessed all the crimes to, And that was kind of the genesis of the original idea, kind of tying in with some of those themes, which are expressed very openly. And, in the first issue of the series, it's never too late for us until we die. We always have a chance to be better people. We can always turn the corner and do better. And the story, I wouldn't say the story so much about religion as it is about faith, Like Father Roy, our main character, he believes in God. Cormac Byrne, the mobster, he kind of believes in himself, and his men that work for him believe in him, like he's their God,
Yeah.
And the cop that's trying to, send Cormac Byrne to jail, no matter what it costs, doesn't really believe in anything, And so all these people have faith in certain things in different ways. And how does that faith, be it a religious faith or whatever it is, or absence of faith, how does it impact their decisions and cause them to do things that keep the story moving forward? And as we go throughout the series, you'll meet additional characters that have those same things. They're looking at it from different ways, and I just thought that would be an interesting story to do. It would give me a chance to do a grounded crime story, which I'd never had a chance to do before. I'm always looking to work in genres that I haven't worked in before. And then we added the extra element. So I had that idea, and then it was like, but what else, And the what else is you end up finding out that, Roy wasn't always a priest. He's an ex-Navy SEAL who found his faith in combat and then became a priest. And so while the whole Irish mob is trying to kill him, he's a guy that can't easily be killed, to the surprise of everyone. Nobody knows this about him. And so that's kind of our big setup for the series,
Yeah, I think you nail it. I his piety, the traditions of the church, but also the kind of grittiness of the characters around him and what he has to navigate. As someone who has made hospital visits and being stopped, being said, "Hey, I have a thought. Can I get your thought on this? Or can you come pray with?" I'm there to see somebody else, but I get diverted because somebody wants to do something else. But then pulled aside, or in a elevator conversation, really human elements in here that I really enjoyed and resonated with. And you just know that Father Roy has a has a deeper past, a past there that will emerge. I'm curious how many issues will this first arc be? What do you got planned? What are where's this?
The
How
core
far is this
story,
first? Yeah.
yeah, the core story is 3 issues, but in between 2 and 3 is a 0 issue about a character called the Machine, who is the big hitman that Cormac Byrne, the Irish mobster, is trying to get to go kill Father Roy, but he can't get him on the phone. Turns out even hitmen have a busy season. He's on another job. And so it kind of tells the story of his day, leading up to issue 3, when now the Machine and Father Roy are going to crash together. And the Machine is a very blue-collar hitman, takes his work very seriously, adheres to his own standards and ethics, and doesn't cut corners. And he's going to run into Father Roy, and that leads us to the big climax at the end. So
yeah, there's no like supernatural element. Like there's not like demons are going to emerge from this, thing that it's like, it is like a grounded crime, John Wick.
It is extremely grounded. Yeah, it's extremely grounded.
And I love
none of that kind of stuff. Yeah, none of that kind of stuff at all. I wouldn't say there's a lot of gun fu or anything like that. Wanted to keep it really grounded in that way because, again, I haven't had a chance. I write Green Lantern and Superman and Manowar and whatever, and even the other books I do for Bad Idea, Planet Death is this, World War II space story, and so, tend to do things that aren't grounded like that. And I love those kinds of stories, in terms of television, I love things like NYPD Blue, right? Or in terms of comics, when I very first started reading comics, Gotham Central was one of the books on the stands. And it's one of my favorite things I've ever read, And so really, really love those kind of really grounded stories, but just hadn't had an opportunity to do them too much. And so saw this as an opportunity to do that. And so when I pitched the idea to Bad Idea, they were really excited about it. I felt like, every once in a while you have an idea and you feel like, I think I might have a good one here, This might be a good one. Whereas most of the time you don't really know, This was one that I felt pretty good about. And I had already had the pitch written and everything. Wasn't sure what I was going to do with it except to just shop it around. And I have a really good relationship with Bad Idea and the people that work there. And so they were the first people I showed it to, and was very happy when they saw the same potential in it that I did, and were on board with it. And so, I'm very excited to have it out now. I don't have a copy yet because my copies still haven't arrived. So
I got mine.
You guys
well,
have
I'll
it
say
before I do.
Kevin read it digitally. I got a hard copy at my local comic store down in Wilmington, and they I love the like old school like newsprint paper. Like, wait, I don't know who's Bad Idea. It's not like really glossy. It's like a newsprint from like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. So I heard that it was on newsprint, which I love because
it's super
to
good.
me, it's going to make it feel more gritty and pulpy, It probably has a smell to it, right? So it's like there's an olfactory kind of inkiness to it, that you get it on your fingers, you get a little dirty when you read it, and so I'm really excited about that too. What's your shop in Wilmington? Is it Memory Lane?
It is. It is Memory Lane. Yep.
Yeah. Tell those guys I said hi.
I will. I'm in Chapel Hill now, and go to Ultimate here. But my first comic store I ever went into as a little kid was Memory Lane, way back in the early '80s. And so I still connect with Jacob and go and pop in when I go down to see my mom down there. So I'll
tell them I said hey. Yeah,
I will. Yeah. Now, have you worked with this artist before?
Ultimate I said hey too. I haven't talked to him.
I will. Yeah. Have you worked with this artist before with Valiant, a Trevor Hairsign? Is that
so at Valiant I worked with Trevor on 2 issues of Manowar. In the very beginning, it was like issue 11 and 12 maybe, or 8 and 9, or 9 and 10, something like that. It was the prelude to the big Armor Hunter storyline that we ended up doing. So I had worked with him, and he's somebody I'd always wanted to get back to. And his style is so great for the story because he's very heavy with the inks, and you get that all those blacks on the page, give you that grittiness and that crime, that noir feel, but also doubly so when your main character is a priest and wears a black outfit with a white, just a pop of white the whole time, And so was really, really excited to work with Trevor, and he's already finished with issue 2. He's already drawn the Zero issue with the Machine, and so a lot of really good stuff coming up, and it's nice because Trevor, he's very good with action, but he's also really good at conveying the conversations, and those are the moments that are really the most important to the book. When Father Roy is talking with Cormac Byrne on his deathbed, and you see the emotion in his face, or when he's riding in the elevator with the police officer and they have their conversation. And there's a scene in the second issue where Father Roy is riding in a car with a police officer, and they have a discussion, and just really love those things. And there's elements that he did. I don't have the comic, or I'd hold it up, so maybe Will, you can. But like if you look at one of the early pages, I think it's page 2. There's a big image of Father, maybe page 3. He's leaving the church, and the church is very big in the background. And Father Roy, yeah, they're right there, right? So the Father Roy is carrying his sacramental bag right now. He knows he's on the way to the hospital to give last rites, and so what's inside that bag are essentially all the elements that you would see if you went to a Catholic church on the altar when you do communion. It has the host in it. It has candles. It has a crucifix. All these things, and that's what he takes to go do last rites on the road. And if you look at the way that Trevor drew that, where he's holding on to the strap of the bag, it's like, is he holding on to the strap of the bag because he's protecting the contents of the bag, or is he holding on to the strap of the bag because he feels like the contents are protecting him? And it's like a security blanket, It's like elements like that he does to the art that I don't write that in the script, That's Trevor bringing his own sensibilities to it, and really the end result ends up being something much more affecting than just words in a Word doc, So,
And Rob, one of the cool things about this book is I actually discovered it not on a comics website, but reading Hollywood Reporter. And this is when I reached out to you because I was just reading this article and saw a headline about a Bad Idea comic being adapted, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it says, new book from Robert Venditti. I was like, wait, I know that guy. But this is a really cool thing because the comic is being made in conjunction with the movie version, which Derek Kolstad, who you've collaborated with before, is spearheading. He's one of the creators of the John Wick franchise. So can you talk about that aspect, how, it's a great comic, and also, it's being paired with the cinematic element as well?
Yeah, so, Derek Kolstad, he's creator of John Wick, screenwriter for, I can't remember which films, but I think the first 3. But the character John Wick is actually named after his grandfather. His grandfather's name is John Wick. Awesome. I was working with him on Planet Death, which is the sci-fi World War II type story that we're doing for Bad Idea. I was co-writing that with him, and so I'd gotten to know him. And Ordained was already completely written and was in the process of being drawn. And Bad Idea, was like, hey, would you want to take a look at this? We're putting it out probably sometime next year, but we think he'd be a good fit for it. And he read it and he loved it. He read the script and absolutely loved it. And so decided that he wanted to adapt it, which is just such a huge compliment. Derek's sensibilities are so good. He's such a strong writer. I remember watching John Wick and just being absolutely blown away by the mythology that he was able to create and the sense of world building, and so much of it was genius. It's one of those things you watch as a writer and you're like, man, I wish I'd thought of that stuff, like the guys who come in and clean up after you kill them, and they got little squeegees and they're just like house cleaners, but they're cleaning up dead bodies, and all these little things, the gold coins and all that stuff, the hotel that you're not allowed to kill anybody in, it's their only safe place. And so absolutely loved all that stuff. And so when he said he wanted to come aboard, such a huge compliment, and then from there, he put together his, his treatment based off the comic and what we'd done in the comic. And, Bad Idea showed that to Colin Farrell, and was, I think, the first actor we showed it to. And Colin Farrell was very excited and has come on board to star as Father Roy. And
what?
So, it's moving. That's super rad. Moving forward at a pretty good pace, and these things are very complicated. A lot of things that have to happen for them to come together and ultimately get to the screen. I know that from experience with the surrogates, but sure. We definitely have started out with, top people for this type of story that we're telling, and they seem to be very enthusiastic about it. And so it's a good place to be this early in the game.
I hope he keeps his Irish accent. I hope they lean into his Catholic Irish Catholic. We'll see.
Yeah, those things happen above my pay grade.
I know.
But yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Fun. Well, I really like it and can't recommend it enough. And so I hope those, tuning in to the channel, listen to the pod, run out to your local store or library or digital, wherever you get digital comics and find it. And I'll be looking forward to see how it unfolds in this first story arc, and knowing that it could be down the road something I'm watching on the smaller big screen is a lot of fun too. That I can say I was there at the beginning when it all began with issue number 1.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing. And Rob, what are some other things you're working on now? Anything you want to plug?
Yes, I've got Planet Death I'm doing with Bad Idea. I also do a story called Survive. That's a bit of a espionage story about a Russian submarine that sinks at the bottom of the ocean, and there's only 2 survivors. One is a Russian sailor, and the other is the American saboteur who sank the ship. And they go to war against each other in this 300-foot long submarine. So we've got that. I announced another project with Derek Kolstad that'll be out from Bad Idea next year called Warbird. That's more of I would say, espionage sort of type story. It's about a mercenary type guy, a private contractor, I guess, if you will, who can drive anything, and he gets hired to steal. He gets hired by the American government to steal a high-tech Russian fighter jet. So we've got that we're doing. I'm trying to remember which things have been announced and which haven't. I have about yeah. I don't think the other one has been announced yet. So those would be the ones that I could talk about for right now. Yeah.
Are there any like characters, or you mentioned like Thundercats? Are there other things out there that you're like, that would be my dream job? I would love to write that character. Or if Marvel or DC or Image came to you and said, yeah,
DC, the 2 that I always wanted to do, I never got a chance to do, was the JSA, to write a Golden Age JSA book with that original cast. And you can see that I try to squeeze them in whenever I can.
Yeah.
And I ended up being able to do a Wesley Dodds Sandman story with Riley Rossmo. We did a 6-issue miniseries of that.
That book
which
was
I really
beautiful.
loved.
That book was beautiful. You guys did great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would love to do Hourman and Wildcat and all those guys, and also Nightwing. I'm not a Batman person at all. Like, I don't, Batman is too dark and too negative I'm a Superman guy, not a Batman guy, right? But I like Nightwing. I think Nightwing is kind of like the Clark Kent of the Bat family, So
absolutely
I would like to write Nightwing. At Marvel, I've always wanted to write Cap. And then what was the one somebody said to me the other day? Oh, the Fantastic Four. I watched the Fantastic Four film, the most recent one with Pedro Pascal and all that. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I think I could write this as a comic. I could write these characters, the whole idea of family and all those kinds of things, And so I guess those would be the ones from those sort of mainstream universes.
Cool. Well, we'll keep plugging your work and tooting your horn and promoting Ordained as well. And maybe after that first arc is done, coming back on and once it's said and done, or get ready for it. If there's any more development with movie and stuff, we'll have you back on to kind of promote and do that kind of stuff too. That would be fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Whatever you guys need. Always happy to talk to y'all. So.
Thanks. All right. So, Kevin, as wrap up here, what are we geeking out on? We are the priests of the geeks. We are geekologists. We there's plenty of things to geek out on. Here we are, 2026. No shortage of things to geek out on, whether it's crime or mystery or superhero stuff. Kevin, I'll let you go first so Rob can think about it. But what other than Stranger Things, because I know you're going to say Stranger Things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because we know that's a given. That's a given.
Sure.
What else out there is?
Yeah, no, it was fun. I actually got to see the finale, well, at home first, but then in theaters on New Year's Day. That was a lot of fun. We'll do our full breakdown of that later. But I've been going back to Something is Killing the Children, which is a book I really like, by James Tynion, and I'm never going to pronounce his name right, so I won't really try there. But also kind of in the vein of Stranger Things. It's a really good horror comic that has that kind of like the missing kids feel, monsters that only kids can see. I love the art, so I'm going back to that from the beginning.
Is that pitched to be like a TV or movie as well?
They're working
Because I
on.
know the
They're
first
working on it.
issue
Yep.
is skyrocketing on eBay,
Yes. Yes.
and which I have the first issue. I was like, I think I have that, and it's like
Yes.
$400-$500
Oh yeah.
comic.
Yeah. I have them all in trades, but yeah, they are developing it as a series. Like Rob was talking about, I mean, of course, it takes a lot to like actually get it to, but I believe it might be Netflix is working on that.
Okay.
I think I read about it, but it would be a great series if they. I mean, they certainly need a good Stranger Things replacement, so it would make sense.
It would. It would. Cool. I like it. Rob, what are you geeking out on these days?
Oh man, well, college basketball season just started, so I'm heavy into that. I watch college
What's your
basketball
team?
pretty much
What's your team?
nonstop. I
What's your team?
graduated from University of Florida, so University of Florida is my team, current reigning champions.
Yes, you are. You had a
And
good
my
year
second
last year.
team, yeah, my second team is Providence College because all my family
Okay.
is originally from Providence, Rhode Island. I used to spend my summers up there when I was a kid. The very
Nice.
first NCAA tournament I ever watched was the year Providence College went to the Final Four, and so
Nice.
big Providence College fan too. So those. I'm reading Cormac McCarthy right now. I don't know how geeky that is.
Hey, no, that's
but I'm
which
reading Cormac
one?
McCarthy. I'm reading Blood Meridian, which I'd never read.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's like every single sentence in the book is better than anything I'll ever write in my life. It's crazy how he does it.
Pretty brilliant.
Nice.
So I'm reading that. What am I watching on TV right now? I read David Milch's book recently. He wrote a book a few years ago. David Milch was the creator of NYPD Blue, Deadwood,
Cool.
a couple other TV series. And so I read his book. It's kind of about his life, but also a bit about writing. And then when that was over, I rewatched all of Deadwood. Just finished that last week.
Fun.
I
Nice.
guess that's kind of what I've been into lately. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I'm liking what I'm geeking out on what DC's doing with DC KO. I'm loving the tie-ins. I'm loving that event is fun. Loved, we had fun with Stranger Things, but a show that Cindy and I discovered is A Man on the Inside, which is Ted Danson as a retiree widow who is a turned amateur private investigator. It's Michael Schur, who's the same dude who did Parks and Rec and The Good Place. And as I was watching it, like the cut shots, the editing, the music, and just how much I love every single character on the show, I'm like, I think this is Mike Schur, because this is like a spitting image of The Good Place. And sure enough, that's what it is. And we just finished season 2 last night, and it really is charming. It's good. It's fun. I was like, all right, I got to watch another. I want to see who did it. It's a really low stake mystery without all the after watching Wake Up Dead Man and all those kinds of things. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then this was good. So I highly recommend A Man on the Inside. Go check it out. It's an
Nice.
easy watch. It's a fun watch. Yeah. Cool. Well, that was fun, Rob. Thanks for being
great.
here. Yeah. And I'll let Kevin do some plugs and sign us off here. He's the best at it.
Absolutely. Well, go check out Rob's books. You can get them wherever in your comic shop, especially, or at bookstores. Follow him on Rob. What's your Instagram handle? I know I follow you, but
Instagram, Twitter is just at Robert Venditti, so you can find me there. Yep.
Great.
Cool.
Awesome. And yeah, just click on the description here in the show to find out more ways you can support us. And thank you all for geeking out with us on a Monday night. Hope you all have a great week and Happy New Year.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Peace. Thanks.